What's up, everybody? I'm Adam. You're watching the Model Aviator channel. This week we're checking out the latest release from Hobby King. This is the Avios Kobuz Aerobatic glider. It's a good size model, yet they've made it quite convenient, and it's very capable. If you watch our channel, you know I love aerobatics, and when it comes to that, this is the most capable glider I've flown yet, and that's saying something. I'm very impressed. When it comes to the assembly, the Kobuz comes with the standard Hobby King quick setup guide. There's a QR code right there you can scan to access the full manual, or you can go to hobbyking.com, go to the Kobuz sales page, and you can download it from there. Now that said, one of the really convenient things that Avios has done with this glider is make the assembly very quick and very simple, so much so that we didn't even bother downloading the manual. We took a look at the parts and it was that easy to figure out. The part count is quite low. We started with our horizontal. You'll use 2 screws to install that. There are recesses on the bottom side of the horizontal. There's a mounting plate at the back of the fuse. You just put that into place, look underneath and make sure it's fully seated, and then use those 2 screws to tighten it down. The rudder has a carbon rod going through the leading edge of the rudder. That's going to be your hinge. There are clips at the back of the vertical. You just snap that into place and you have a ready-made recessed hinge. Next, we installed our wings. There's a single carbon tube. There are multi-wire pH connectors coming out of each wing cradle, and each wing has a plug for that connector. There are also hooks on each wing cradle with spring-loaded tabs in the wings. You plug in the pH connector, slide the wings on until you hear them click, and just make sure that those tabs have fully engaged those hooks. The tail cone is the only piece you have to glue on. We used foam tack. That was pretty simple. Then we installed our elevator and rudder push rods. Next comes the prop. There are grub screws on either side of the prop. You want to take those out. Be sure and use Loctite. There are flat spots on the motor shaft on either side. You want to tighten those down in place. You know you get the prop in the right place when the motor shaft comes to the end of the prop. The only thing left at this point is to install your spinner. The spinner installs with 2 screws that go straight into the prop hub. Be sure and make sure that you check the prop for proper balance before you install it, and balance it, of course, if it needs to be balanced. Don't forget the Loctite on those grub screws, and make sure that they are engaging the flat parts of that motor shaft. The only other thing that you have to be concerned about when you're assembling this airplane in your shop or at the field is when you push the carbon wing tube through. That wing tube can run into the multi-wires inside the fuse. So you want to make sure you take the hatch off, put a hand in there, and make sure those wires are clear so you don't cut those with that tube as you put it through. The push rods for the flaps and ailerons are already pre-installed, so other than choosing a receiver and putting that in there, you're ready to rock and roll. The Kobuz has an 86.5-inch wingspan. It's 47.5 inches long. It has a 750 kV brushless motor, a 50 amp brushless ESC, 4 13-gram servos to 25-gram servos. Ours weighs 4.6 pounds ready to fly with a 4S 3200, and it is intended for 4S 3000 to 4000 milliamp packs. Given the weight and wingspan of this one, it's technically not a park flyer, although a really large park would be a great place to fly the Kobuz. You just need to be aware of the laws surrounding flying models where you live. Hobby King sells this as a plug and fly, which means you choose the radio protocol and install your receiver of choice yourself. Any protocol is fine, so long as it's a full range receiver. It is a 5-channel airplane out of the box. You have elevator, rudder, ailerons, flaps, and of course, throttle control. The mold is very well done. The foam is very smooth, and I like the paint job they've got on this airplane. There's a lot of contrast between the white on top and the red on bottom to make staying oriented with this, even at high altitude, very easy to do. Now, like any good motor glider, it has a foldable prop that tucks back out of the way when you're gliding to keep the airplane aerodynamic. There are NACA ducts on either side of the nose and an exit hole underneath the fuse to make sure that everything stays cool inside. It is a convenient top loader with plenty of room in that battery bay for even the largest packs recommended, although with a glider you may or may not want to use really heavy packs. We'll talk a little more about that when we talk about the setup. They have accounted for the fact that since you have to hand launch this glider, you're obviously going to have to belly it in. There's a plastic skid plate underneath the fuse. There's what looks to be, I think, a hard ply tail skid. The wingtips have skids. Even the aileron and flap servos, servo arms, and linkage have protective covers on them. So basically, when you land this airplane, there's no foam that's going to hit the ground anywhere. The airframe on the Kobuz is carbon reinforced throughout. That does a couple things for you. The first thing is it makes it fly a bit more precise. The second thing is it makes sure that this airplane can take a steady diet of high intensity aerobatics that it was made for, and we put that to the test. Wait until you see the G meter after our flights. Pretty impressive. But perhaps the greatest feature of the Kobuz is the fact that it is convenient. From the initial assembly to the field assembly, the quick detach wings, toolless, just makes transporting this airplane, storing this airplane, and having a good time with a big airplane really easy. A lot of times when they're a pain to get together, people don't take them. This is a good size glider that you will absolutely take to the field because it's just really easy to deal with. When it comes to setup, it is a plug and fly, which means the first step in the setup is you're going to have to install your receiver of choice. We fly Spectrum, so we installed an AR631 Plus that does have AS3X Plus stabilization. We did program that and tune that to this airplane, but we did fly it both with and without stabilization, so we could report to you what our findings were. And the findings are always pretty typical, but we just keep doing that anyway. The quick setup guide is a great place to start. If you put this setup on your Kobuz, you'll be in business. You can start from there and then retune any of that to your preferences if you're not bonkers about the quick setup guide suggestions. Now that said, I'm going to tell you a little secret. I never looked at this. I just set up the throws to pretty much maximum, threw a battery in the center of the tray, and started flying the airplane and tuning it to my liking. So we will have our full setup page coming up at the end of this setup chapter for you to check out, including our AS3X Plus settings for those of you that fly Spectrum that may want to put AS3X Plus in your Kobuz. We flew the airplane on 4 different batteries, 3200 Spectrum, a 3400 SMC, a 4000 Turnigy, and a 2200 Turnigy. Now, they don't list 2200 as a battery that you can use in this airplane, but if what you're interested in is the glider part of glider flying and not so much diving in and doing aerobatics or using power and doing aerobatics like I like to do, if you put one of these all the way forward, it balances fine and you're flying the airplane in its lightest state. It's going to be the best glider it can be with the lightest pack. Makes sense. So coming up next, our full setup page. You can pause that, check it out, put that setup on your Kobuz, give it a try if you'd like. After that, we'll get right to the demo flight. Check that out. We'll meet you back here. We'll give you our final thoughts. To get our preferred 70mm balance position, we've got our 3200 all the way back and we're only utilizing the rear strap. I had to wait for the full-scale plane to get far enough away for you to be able to hear our narration. Hand launching the Kobuz is very simple. You give it full power and it just flies right out of your hands. No mix is needed, and you don't have to have something like safe to get a good launch. The glide ratio is very good. That was the full length of our 400-foot runway, and it didn't lose any altitude hardly at all. There's a couple of ways to approach aerobatics. Power off, you can power in and then back off, or you can get up high and dive in. I like doing some of both. You can find cool ways to get to altitude and make that fun. Here we did a series of elements to get there. I don't know if it's the cooling ducts or just what makes the whistling sound when you glide this thing and get it going pretty fast, but it sounds very cool. This is going to be a gliding inverted pass. With our balance point, it's almost neutral. Doesn't take a lot of down elevator to maintain it. When you utilize the power for aerobatics, it can get very interesting. That was a positive pinwheel. And that was a negative pinwheel. As you'll see here, does a great inverted flat spin as well. Now I'm going to do a pop top, and this thing does that as good as any 3D plane I've ever flown. Of course, being a glider, when you want to land it, it wants to float forever. The flaps really come in handy and make it easy to get her on down. We put this airframe to the test to be sure. Positive and negative 11 Gs during that flight. I'm very impressed. This is easily the most capable aerobatic glider that I've flown to date. We said that before and you saw it. I did some things with this I haven't been able to do with any glider. That gigantic rudder and all the throw you have definitely helps that. And it's also a really good glider. It has a great glide ratio, so I think it makes a really good multi-role airplane. If you want to thermal it, it can do that. If you want to slope sort, it can do that. And if you want to do what I like to do with it and dive in and do aerobatics and then do some under power, it's great at that as well. And of course, you get a really good flight time because, I mean, you know, it's a glider. Now, one thing I will say when it comes to gyro stabilization, I'm a big proponent of AS3X Plus. It is great stuff. I can tell you this airplane does not need it, but it was made better by it, particularly in the bit of wind that we had to fly in. But I will say this, it doesn't take much. If you checked out the setup, you can see the gains are not very high at all on this. You don't have to gyro the shit out of this thing to give it the little bit of help that it needs in some wind to make it look as if there isn't any. So pretty impressed with that. And when it comes to skill level, I would say this is a skill level 2 airplane. In my book, that would mean that it'd make a great second airplane after a trainer. In my mind, the best trainers have landing gear and teach you every aspect of flying an airplane. Hand launching this and experimenting with gliders and doing aerobatics with gliders, it's a great thing to do as a newer pilot, because diving in and doing aerobatics with something as capable as this is going to teach you a lot about energy management, and that is really useful. Plus, gliders are just fun in ways that conventional airplanes just simply aren't. They are their own little entity, and it is a nice thing to have in the hangar. Now, when it comes to putting one of these in the hangar, the going price here in the US for the Kobuz is $449. This is a good size glider. It's very capable. It's very well done. It's very convenient, but that's still a pretty steep price. But the fact is, they all are right now, given the tariff and the economic trade situation that we have right now. It just is what it is. Everything with wings, RC, is more than it would be if that were not the case. So if you are in the market for a very capable aerobatic glider, I've never flown a better one than this, and that is saying something. I've flown some Hotliner style aerobatic gliders that I was very impressed with. This flies more like a glider that's just crazy aerobatic, and I kind of like that. It's not the fastest thing that you're ever going to fly, but it's fast enough. It's got plenty of power to get you to altitude for those dive ins or to thermal or whatever you want to do. It has everything I want in a glider, and for me, this one is a keeper. So if you'd like to add one to your hangar, we'll put some links in the description where you can do just that. When you go through those links, it lets Hobby King know that you like what we're doing, and when you do that, we appreciate it. Thank you very much. That's it for us. Take care of yourselves. Happy flying. We'll see you next week with something cool with wings.